How many times have you heard somebody say, I'm totally drafting so-and-so this year because they carried my team last season? Or, never drafting that guy. He killed me last year. Well, things change from year to year, especially in fantasy football. And if you're out there making decisions solely off of what happened a year ago, you could miss out on some big-time steals here that we're talking about right now. What is going on, Headline Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headlines. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today. We're talking about running backs and what has changed, right? So there's a simple way that we can go about doing this. I'm going to look at last year's top 20 overall running backs, how they finished at the end of the year, and let's kind of look and see what are some of the changes that happened this offseason, see where their ADP is at, and see if it makes sense. See how much it excites us here in this year's fantasy football draft. Now, before we get into this, I got to set you guys a like goal because you're absolute. I feel like I need to thrust something. You guys are just smacking like goals, and I absolutely love it. So in this episode, if we can get 1,492 likes, I'm going to give away 2 draft guides to 2 random people down below in the comment section. So hit that like button, leave that comment, because we're going to dive right in to our top 20 overall running backs. But full disclosure here, kind of going to break the rules slightly. I wanted to do the top 20, a nice even round number. But David Montgomery finished at 21st overall, and I know that if I don't include him, I'm going to have 64 comments down below as to, where's David Montgomery? Oh, y'all sleeping on David Montgomery. David Montgomery gets no respect. So I'm going to include him, just to avoid those meaningless comments down below. So technically, you're getting yourself a bonus. We'll do the top 21, but you can see on the screen right here where they finished last season, 1 through 20. Obviously, I just told you David Montgomery finished right there at 21. So let's go ahead. Let's break these down line by line. The first guy up, you already know, it's Jonathan Taylor. And I don't know about you, but I don't know if there's a better way to show how excited you are about a player than an eggplant meter, right? I mean, come on, let's be realistic. Eggplant meter is like goated around here. So let's take a look at Jonathan Taylor. Finished 2021 as the overall running back 1. We know this, but what has changed somewhat here this offseason? Well, new quarterback, right? Carson Wentz, he's now in Washington. Matt Ryan traded to the Indianapolis Colts. They signed Phillip Lindsay, and they also brought in Tyson Williams. Remember that name from Baltimore just last season? They drafted wide receiver Alec Pierce and tight end Jelani Woods, and Paris Campbell is back and healthy. But how does this really affect Jonathan Taylor? Well, the first thing that I can think of off the top of my head is the change in quarterback, right? Matt Ryan has always loved to check down to his running backs. Now, how much is that going to be Jonathan Taylor? And how much do we see of Nyheim Hines this year? Maybe a little Phillip Lindsay sprinkled in, but don't kid yourself. Jonathan Taylor's still going to be the tops of everybody's draft board. My eggplant meter firmly in the red on Jonathan Taylor as the number 1 overall pick. Number 2, Austin Ekeler. What has changed for Austin Ekeler? Last year, he was the running back 2 overall, and he's currently the running back 2 in ADP right now. But his offensive line is slightly improved with right guard Zion Johnson. Spent a 4th round pick on running back Isaiah Spiller. Boosted the defense with signing Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. The AFC West just greatly improved overall. There's going to have to be a lot of offense every single week when these guys are playing division games. This dude actually likes fantasy football, too. I don't know if you know this or not, but he's done podcasts in the past. Austin Ekeler will come out publicly and just say, y'all should draft me in fantasy football. I'm going to put up points. And I love to see a player who's aware of fantasy football, because he's out there trying to score some points. Now, he's also coming off career highs in touches, yards, and touchdown. My eggplant meter, solid red for Austin Ekeler once again. Let's move on to Joe Mixon. Finished last year as running back 3 overall, currently sitting at running back 7 here in 2022. Arguably the most improved offensive line in the entire NFL. Maybe one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They added center Ted Karras. They added right guard Alex Kappa. They added right tackle Lyle Collins from Dallas. Huge improvements to the offensive line. Joe Mixon is coming off career highs in touches, yards, and touchdowns as well. The Bengals are going to have an opportunity to play with the lead more this season, and with those 3 stud wide receivers outside once again and healthy, they're going to pull coverage everywhere but the box. So Joe Mixon, the eggplant meter has exploded. The top has been blown off the eggplant meter. Loving the running back 7 overall here this year in Joe Mixon. Next up, Najee Harris finished last year as running back 4, currently going as running back 6. But we know there's no more Big Ben, and there's no more being handcuffed in this offense. Now, when I say being handcuffed, this offense has kind of been held back the last couple years due to Ben's inability to move in the pocket and make things happen consistently down the field. They've slightly improved their offensive line, slightly. Ever so slightly, but the starting quarterbacks are really going to utilize checkdowns. They also drafted wide receivers George Pickens and Calvin Austin. There's really no threat in this backfield for Najee Harris to lose touches. Sure, the volume may be slightly lower than what we saw last season if they can really improve the overall passing game, but the volume he's going to see is going to be right up there in the top tier talent of running back. The eggplant meter is still solid red right here for Najee Harris, currently running back 6. How about James Conner? Now, last year finished as running back 5, currently going as running back 19. We know Chase Edmonds is gone. He's now in Miami. James Conner signed a 3-year, $21 million deal, but then this offseason, the Cardinals also signed Darrell Williams, but they're not going to have DeAndre Hopkins, who's suspended for the first 6 games of the season. So why is James Conner so low? Why is he all the way down at 19? Is it because of Darrell Williams? Well, if anything, Darrell Williams is going to fill that Chase Edmonds role, and we still have an opportunity for a lot of touchdowns going to James Conner, who himself is not bad in the pass-catching game either. Sure, Zach Ertz will take a little bit of a bump. Marquise Hollywood Brown will get a little bit of a bump. But all the way down at running back 19? Nah. My eggplant meter at that price, still in the red. Which takes us down to Ezekiel Elliott, who finished last year running back 6, currently running back 18. I mean, that's a heck of a drop for a guy who's still pretty much producing, right? Sure, it may not be at the level of what it was a couple years ago, but still solid production. Amari Cooper is gone. He's in Cleveland. Cedric Wilson is gone. He's in Miami. Michael Gallup coming off of a torn ACL. Now, they did lose Lyle Collins and Connor Williams off of the offensive line. This offensive line is not what it was a few years ago, but they did spend a high draft pick on left guard Tyler Smith in the first round, and they still have an overall solid offensive line. Now, a lot of people want to look at Zeke and say he's coming off his worst season ever. Zeke killed me last year. Zeke's on the decline. Zeke is washed. Zeke still had 284 touches for 1,289 yards and 12 total touchdowns, finishing as running back 6 overall. Sure, he may not be what he was a couple years ago, but at running back 18, I'm starting to worry that my eggplant's going to stick in the red for too long, and I'm going to have to make a phone call somewhere. All right, next, running back 7, Leonard Fournette last season. Now, as you can tell, the eggplant meter, I mean, it's at an unsafe level right now, and a lot of people are giving this guy a lot of undue hate here over the last week. Now, the offensive line did lose Alex Kappa. They lost Ali Marpet to retirement, so that hurts. However, they did add right guard Shaq Mason from the Patriots and drafted left guard Luke Godecki, so it's not a overall, huge issue there in Tampa Bay. Now, Gronk, as of right now, still retired. Chris Godwin recovering from a torn ACL. And Bruce Arians no longer the head coach. It's now Todd Bowles, who has still been in Tampa Bay. So it's not like it's a brand new face here for the Buccaneers. But overall, Leonard Fournette, everybody's looking at his weight here as of late, coming in at right around 260. He came out and said he played at 245 last year. So we're talking about 15 pounds in about 6 to 7 weeks or so. As a professional athlete that's going to be running in the hot, humid Florida weather here in the summer, I have no issues going on the record saying it shouldn't be an issue for him to lose the 15 pounds that he needs. We just saw some videos of him working out a couple weeks ago. Dude's like deadlifting half of a county out there, okay? He's still in pretty good shape. So like you can see, the eggplant meter, unsafe levels right now. Oh, phew, finally, the eggplant's starting to cool off a little bit. I'm starting to lose some blood flow here. Running back 8 last year, ALVIN KAMARA, currently going at running back 11. The biggest issue here, pending assault charge. Off-field issues are not what we want to have from players in fantasy football. Is there a possible suspension coming? It's a new offense. It's a new head coach in Dennis Allen, more of a defensive style of coach. There's questions in the passing game, and most of all, it's really the assault charge, right? And I tell people this all the time when it comes to ALVIN KAMARA. If we don't have any new news on ALVIN KAMARA at the time of your draft, I'm totally passing. I'm talking the eggplant meter is totally flaccid if I don't know what's going on with the off-field charges before the season. The last thing I want to do is spend a pick that's that high in my draft and potentially lose the guy for a chunk of the season. Next up, Cordarrelle Patterson. Last year's running back 9 overall, currently running back 43. That's a hell of a drop. And we know he's no longer the top option in the offense there in Atlanta. There's a new quarterback in town with Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder. When do we see the rookie? Is it Marcus Mariota all year long? We know Calvin Ridley is suspended for the entire season. We know they also drafted wide receiver Drake London and running back Tyler Algier. And they also signed Damien Williams, running back there in the backfield as well. What are we really going to see in this backfield? Are we going to expect the same thing from Cordarrelle Patterson this year that we saw last year? Absolutely not. Is he going to outproduce running back 43? Absolutely he is. So he's definitely a name that I'm not super high on, but I do believe he can outperform that ADP. So he's going to be a solid yellow for me here as of right now. Which takes us down to running back 10, Antonio Gibson. Yep, going a little flaccid here. Ron Rivera still does not like this guy. For whatever reason, they cannot commit to Antonio Gibson. You can even see in the picture, he himself is confused as to why he does not get the ball more. We know there's a new quarterback there in town with Carson Wentz. But then they re-signed J.D. McKissick and drafted running back Brian Robinson. Why? Why can they just not commit to Antonio Gibson? They also drafted wide receiver Jahan Dotson to help open up the passing game a little bit. Do we see more Curtis Samuel this season? For whatever reason, Ron Rivera still hates your fantasy team and cannot commit fully to Antonio Gibson. Therefore, the eggplant down in the green. Number 11, Nick Chubb. Currently this year's running back 8. We know Baker Mayfield gone to Carolina. Deshaun Watson suspension. When is that coming? How long is that going to be? Are we looking at 6, 8 games? Still up in the air. Jarvis Landry, gone. Austin Hooper, gone. Drafted wide receiver David Bell, who I do like a little bit late in drafts, super late in deeper leagues. And we know there are going to be a heavy run offense without Deshaun Watson under center. A lot of people worried about Jacoby Brissett being the week 1 starter. I am not. That just means they're going to rely heavily on the running game, which still has one of the best offensive lines in all of football. We're going solid red here for Nick Chubb. Down to running back 12, Aaron Jones, and the meter has once again exploded. We know Devontae Adams is gone. He's with the Raiders. MVS gone to the Chiefs. Equanimeous St. Brown, or ESB to those who want to abbreviate things, is gone to... Doesn't really matter. He's on someone else's bench right now. He's not in Green Bay. Their offensive line does get left tackle David Bakhtiari back, which is a huge boost to the offensive line. They drafted wide receivers Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. They signed Sammy Watkins, but they really focused on defense and offensive line in the draft. We know they're going to need playmakers in this offense. We know that Aaron Rodgers plays favorites, and he's really drawn to the guys that he has the best chemistry with. Aaron Jones, big-time playmaker, super efficient. Eggplant meter has exploded. Last year's running back 13, Damien Harris of the New England Patriots. They've lost guard Shaq Mason, but they then turned around and drafted guard Cole Strange super early in the NFL draft. Also acquired wide receiver Devontae Parker and drafted wide receiver Tyquan Thornton. They also drafted running back Pierre Strong, but Damien Harris is playing in a contract year this year. Do I expect them to extend him long-term? Probably not. They love Ramondre Stevenson as well, but I can definitely see them running Damien Harris into the ground and giving him a solid workload and plenty of goal line carries. The meter isn't exploding here, but he's currently going at running back 25, which means I'm firmly in the red here once again. Starting to lose my breath, feel like I'm letting it flow here, but that's all right. We're going to keep it going down to running back 14, Josh Jacobs, who's currently this year running back 20. Now, Kenyon Drake, he's back from injury. They also acquired Davante Adams, really made minimal improvements to the offensive line, which kind of sucks, but they did draft running back Zamir White as well. A lot of people expect Zamir White to be the future of this backfield. Josh Jacobs in a contract year. Do we see him there in Las Vegas anymore? If not, could they run him into the ground this year as well? Plus, in the AFC West, which we've already talked about, drastically improved, they're going to have to score points, and this may be the year that the boxes really aren't stacked for Josh Jacobs and really opens up some running lanes and allows him to be a little bit more efficient. So right here, meter going in the red, slightly. On to Dalvin Cook, last year's running back 15, currently going at running back 5. Now, new head coach there, Kevin O'Connell from the Rams, absolutely love what he's going to do to this offense. We have Irv Smith back from injury at the tight end position. Slight offensive line improvements, nothing crazy there in Minnesota, but their defense added Zadarius Smith and Jordan Hicks, love those additions, and a heavy focus in the draft on defense as well. If this offense is more high-powered and their defense improves, that means we could see more late-game running, which means I love me some Dalvin Cook. He is solid red, not quite meter exploding red, but he's near the top of it. How about Derrick Henry, last year's running back 16, currently going at running back 4. Now, this offense lost A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, yet they added Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, and tight end Austin Hooper. They also drafted wide receiver Treylon Burks and running back Hassan Haskins. That's okay, though. This offense runs through Derrick Henry. We need a more improved passing game, and hopefully Robert Woods and Treylon Burks can outproduce kind of what we saw last year from A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, which shouldn't be too tough because they didn't go out there and absolutely kill it in the passing game last year either. Hassan Haskins, a solid backup, but let's be realistic here. Derrick Henry's the man in Tennessee. He's a solid red. Down to running back 17, Javonte Williams. This may surprise some people. He's not in the red. He's about half staff right here on my eggplant, which sucks because I love me some Javonte Williams. They added quarterback Russell Wilson. They re-signed Melvin Gordon. They really went heavy defense during the draft, and they also have a new head coach in Nathaniel Hackett. Now, had they not re-signed Melvin Gordon, dear Lord, Javonte Williams may be a top 6 or 7 pick. Because of that, he's dropped down to running back 9, but in my opinion, that's still a little bit too high for a backfield that's going to split touches with a running back in Melvin Gordon that has still produced year in and year out, and a lot of people want to forget about him. To the point where, let's just talk about him here next, because he was running back 18, only finished one spot lower than Javonte Williams last year. Now, the same situation goes for Melvin Gordon this year, but the reason why he's in the red and Javonte Williams isn't, because Melvin Gordon is currently going as running back 33. 33! Melvin Gordon, a guy who could easily finish top 20 once again this year at an RB 33 price. That makes the eggplant excited because this guy still gets written off. A lot of people love Javonte Williams, like I said, myself included, but we got to be realistic here. Melvin Gordon is still a very capable running back in this league. How about running back 19 last year, DeAndre Swift? Well, they added DJ Chark and drafted Jameson Williams, but we may not see too much of Jameson Williams at the beginning of the year anyway. He may be more of a second half guy. Plus, they also spent a first, second, and third round pick on defense. The biggest issue here is usage. Will Dan Campbell commit to using DeAndre Swift before the fourth quarter? Because was it just me, or did last year it seem like at times Dan Campbell didn't really care to use DeAndre Swift until the end of the game when it was already out of hand, and he'd rack up 5 or 6 receptions and we'd be happy about it, but why not utilize that guy earlier in the game? Things are lining up. The offensive line is much improved in Detroit, and that's going to put DeAndre Swift in the low red right here on the eggplant. Last year's running back 20, Devin Singletary, going back south again. We're starting to lose steam here in the eggplant. They drafted running back James Cook. And that's really the main reason for this. If it wasn't for the drafting of James Cook, Devin Singletary, currently at running back 29, could be a huge steal. But James Cook is already getting buzz and can do everything that Devin Singletary can do as well, if not maybe a little bit better. Now, you also know they'd have a new offensive coordinator because Brian Daboll now with the New York Giants, and that's going to be Ken Dorsey. So how much do we really see of Devin Singletary? Do we see him on passing down work? Is that all James Cook? If James Cook can break off some big runs, do they start to phase out Devin Singletary some? That's why the eggplant, we're going low yellow here, which leaves us to the last guy on the list, the bonus guy. David Montgomery finished running back 21 last year, currently going at running back 15. But we know the Bears lost wide receiver Allen Robinson. They assembled arguably the worst wide receiver group in the NFL, along with arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL. They also lost Khalil Mack on defense. They have a new head coach as well, Matt Eberflus from Indianapolis. I love David Montgomery. I love the skill set of David Montgomery, and there's not going to be too many options in this offense other than David Montgomery, Cole Kmet, and Darnell Mooney. So we know he's going to see volume, but the problem here is he's going to have to see so much of it because the inefficiencies are going to be absolutely glaring because he's going to have no room to run. Defenders are going to be in his face the second he gets the football, kind of similar to what we've seen here over the last couple years with Saquon Barkley. Sure, injuries aside, but when Saquon's on the field the past couple years, he just can't find anywhere to run because the offensive line hasn't been that great. Can Justin Fields make something out of the passing game to help open up some running lanes? Until that happens, we're going dang near totally flaccid here with David Montgomery barely cracking the yellow. Whew, I mean, that was like a let it flow. Am I sweating? I can't tell. I mean, I feel like I'm sweating. That was a lot of talking in a short amount of time, but hopefully you enjoyed looking at things a little bit differently. Don't forget, things change from year to year. Don't go into a draft with the mindset of, well, this player did this last year, because so much has changed. You have to look at it a little bit differently, because if you don't, you could miss out on some huge steals this year and totally pay the price for it in fantasy football. And we're trying to win championships around here. So if you're with me, hit that like button and then leave me a comment down below. Which one of these running backs has your eggplant at full red explosion right now? Because I'd love to have that conversation back and forth with you. We're trying to stay as interactive as we can down below in the comment section. And we enjoy just hanging out with Headliner Nation down there as well. Don't forget to hit that like button, because we got a like goal to hit. If you guys want some free draft guides, looking forward to giving those away probably in the coming days, because you guys don't take very long to hit your like goals. But for now, I'm going to get out of here. I got some mock drafts to do. I'm going to be doing the mock draft episode here this week, and I'm dropping links to our members only. So if you haven't become a member yet, if you want to get in on some mock drafts with us and some of the videos and heck, just mock drafting with me, Kyle, the doc, you got to become a member. Hit that join button down below, because we're dropping links in there all the time. Looking forward to doing that. But for now, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week. We'll talk to you later.